British Spy Stories. Season 3. Official Denial. Episode 6. Scurrying light clouds blow across the sky above Marjorie as she walks from Westminster to her job in MI5 headquarters. Thames House is a vast honey-coloured sandstone block that looks across the river at bland brown buildings which are rented out to shell companies owned by MI5 to stop foreign powers getting in there and listening from across the water. She turns down Thorney Street and goes in through the back door entrance. Her operational area is on the 3rd floor, overlooking the Thames. She logs in through the floor security, and a glass door swings open within a continuous glass wall that runs from one end of the space to the other. The office stretches for 60 feet, illuminated by enormous glazed windows that show the pale sky outside. High up along one edge of the room are large screens that show numbers, words or video about current MI5 operations, either live or planned for later today. Marjorie can see the body cam feed of a joint police and MI5 operation in Norfolk. She reviews the action log that shows what has happened during the night shift just gone, and walks over to Pete Hudson, the on-shift operations controller, who she is about to take over from. "Hi, Marge." "Anything on?" she says. He looks up at the screens above their heads and points at the video stream with a pen in his hand. "Operation Woolby, there, is almost over. An hour to clear it off." "Nothing unplanned?" "No. Let me just write this log entry, then it's all yours." He types on a keyboard and a line of text is added on one of the displays. He stands up and leans over a microphone to one side. "Agent Marswell, handing London Control to Agent Exeter, 08:54 hours. He pulls his pass card on a sprung reel from the lanyard around his neck and swipes it through the reader. The lights on the corners of the screens turn red. Marjorie swipes her card through the reader, and the lights change back to green, and she voice registers her control of the MI5 London desk. "See you tomorrow, Marge." He holds up a hand as he walks off, but doesn't look back. Marjorie sits in the swivel chair positioned at the epicentre of the screens above her. She pushes an earpiece into one ear to hear the body cam audio feed from Norfolk. Sometime during the morning, Marjorie looks over to the glass door and sees the ops director enter the room. Connie walks over to her. "Hello, Exeter." "Mum? All okay?" "Yes, Mum, nothing live currently. We've got the second phase of Operation Wharton coming up at 1300 hours. Connie doesn't acknowledge the words, but continues to watch the screens of information in front of them. After a minute, she says, "When is that joint op with 6? Dunport, isn't it?" "Yes, Mum. Tonight, commencing..." Marjorie moves the mouse on the desk to change one of the screens. "Commencing 1900. Will you be on then?" "Yes, Mum. Are 6 providing us with the information we need? They can be slow at times, can't they?" Connie turns to look directly at her. "Sometimes, Mum. I want you to be across all detail, Exeter. I'd like you to take on personal responsibility for Dunport." She smiles, but not genuinely. "Yes, Mum. Make sure they don't shaft us again," says Connie. Then she turns away and talks to some other people in the room, then presses the door button and walks back to the corridor outside the glass. Marjorie dials a comms link to MI6 Ops Control. "Exeter at Thames House," she announces when the call is answered. "What can we do for you, Marjorie?" She recognises the voice. "Hello, Marlin. I'm calling about Operation Dunport later today." In the control room, Marlin presses a button on the desk in front of her. "We're ready," she says. "Resources allocated and on standby at the local army barracks. Send me the intel, can you? We've got 3 of our field ops in place. 2 are in deep cover and they can't be exposed, so they'll be arrested along with the others." Sir Bernard walks into the MI6 control and stands behind Marlin. One of the staff hands him an earpiece and he pushes it into his ear.
Okay, I'll send it, she says. There is something else too. There's an operation that came through the other day that referenced an MI5 op. It was one of ours around the Black Sea. Okay. I'll send it over to you have a look, says Marlin. We wanted to know if there are any risks your side.
No worries. The line goes dead. Marlin turns to Sir Bernard.
Is that what you wanted, sir?
Yes, thank you, Tilly, says Sir Bernard. Ask comms branch to create some dum-dum, will you?
Yes, sir.
The briefest sound of a keycard being slid through the lock of Hans's hotel room door precedes Laravel walking in. He is sitting at an array of 3 screens set up against the back wall of the room. She is carrying 2 burgers and 2 cans of drink, which she sets down on the bed, then sits so she can see what's on the displays.
What you got?
She says, handing him a burger.
This is a list of Overbeck known associates.
He points to the left-hand screen.
This name at the top, Elena Chachuk, is a close associate. Maybe they're in a relationship. She appears to have travelled out of Kyiv at the same time that he did. She works as a civil servant, or did. She took an extended holiday. I traced her card spend, and bingo, she's been paying for stuff on her bank card here in Budapest.
Do we know an address for her?
Says Laravel. He types on the keyboard. A list of data comes up on the right-hand screen.
This is the flat rentals list for the city, and if we're lucky,
he scrolls down.
Yes, there, Miss O. Chachuk, flat 5, 8 Verasmati Street.
Laravel punches the address into her phone.
15 minutes walk from here,
she says.
I'll go and have a look.
She has gone from the room before Hans realizes. She turns left out of the hotel and walks at pace through the chill of the Hungarian day. Verasmati Street is a broad road that runs north up to Hunyadi Square. Laravel walks the length of the roadway, checking the building numbers, and finds number 8. She walks past it and goes into a small cafe that sits on the far side of the road. There is only one other person in the place, apart from her, and she sits by the window with a good view of the entrance to Elena's flat. Laravel had bought a newspaper on the journey from the hotel, and sits with it open and occasionally flicks the pages over, even though her whole attention is on the doorway. She has been here almost an hour, and the woman behind the counter has asked twice if she would like anything else. Then across the road the door opens in the block, and a blonde woman in her 30s steps out onto the pavement. She starts walking back towards the old town. Hans had given Laravel a rough description of Elena, based on a CCTV image that he found in Budapest railway station. And this woman fits that description perfectly. Laravel walks out and stands by the cafe pretending to look at her phone. She lets 50 yards build up between her and the woman, then gets on her tail. Elena walks up the road, then turns into the narrower streets around the Hungarian State Opera House. Laravel keeps pace, speeding up when the crowds get slightly denser and the streets narrower. Eventually, Elena walks into a brasserie called Onopoke. There's a short side street on the opposite side, and Laravel stops there and puts her phone to her ear in the pretense of a phone call. She can see Elena sitting at a table near enough to the front of the place for Laravel to have a reasonable view. Within 5 minutes, another woman comes in from the street and walks to Elena. They kiss cheeks and start chatting at the table, then order wine. Laravel pushes her hand into the pocket of her coat and brings out a lens that clips at right angles onto her phone. Now Laravel can look down at the phone and not create suspicion. A close-up image of the 2 women comes into focus on the screen. She pushes her other hand into her pocket and pulls out a remote control box. She presses it several times and the photos of Elena and her friend are captured.
You getting these images, Hans?
Yeah, I got 'em,
he says into her earpiece.
You need to attach the tracker to her as well, Jenny.
Laravel pulls off the lens and walks towards the restaurant. There are no tables left, but the waiter finds her a place at the bar, and she orders food, all the while watching Elena and her lunch companion from the other side of the restaurant. She finishes some of the food and walks towards the front of the place, making directly for Elena. As she passes the table, Laravel drops her phone onto her foot to reduce the impact. It skates off her shoe and across the floor to land among the table legs near Elena.
"Oh, I'm sorry,"
she says in Russian.
"My phone? I dropped my phone."
Elena and the man at the next table turn and realize what has happened. The man tries to help, but Laravel tells him that she can retrieve the device. She drops to her knees and reaches into the gap between the tables. Elena's long coat is on the back of her chair, and Laravel opens her palm and pushes one micro tracker onto the fabric of the coat. Then, with a single sweep of her hand, she manages to briefly touch Elena's boot and attach a second micro dot tracker to the toe cap. With profuse apologies, she stands up and proudly shows that she has the mobile phone in her hand, and everyone goes back to their meals. Laravel returns to her place in the bar, pays the bill, and slips back out into the street. Gabby had messaged Nick Warren last night and asked to meet him as Hans reported to her that the MI6 resources under his leadership have been less than cooperative with providing intelligence information. Nick had suggested they meet somewhere that they could talk privately, and tells her his home address in the back streets of Budapest. His flat is on Keskényo Street, in the Angyalfold district to the northwest of the city centre. The flat is stark and grey, with hardly any furniture. When she arrives, he has a bottle of gin in his hand, and he pours them both large measures, and they sit on chairs by the window. "I didn't think we'd meet again in these circumstances, Gabby," he says. "I didn't think we'd meet again." She is curt. "Look, I'm here to talk business, Nick." His face doesn't give away any emotion, a technique at which they're both expert. "Your team is playing silly buggers," she says. "You're imagining it. Hans is one of the people I trust the most in 6. If he says you're playing silly buggers, it's true. Don't fuck with me, Nick." "I remember your temper, Gabrielle," he says. "I wouldn't want to rile you intentionally, would I?" She takes a breath out but can't hide her frustration. "What do you want, Nick? Do you want some sort of explanation, some sort of apology?" "It's not about us." He locks his gaze on hers. "What is it then?" "The intel is hard to collect." "That's bollocks, Nick. You know it." Her eyes are languid. "Look, my team have done enough to know that the house where Redwick is based outside Budapest has hardly any security. 2 or 3 guys, that's it." "Can I rely on you, Nick?" "We're trying our best," he says, his palms open on the table in front of him. Gabby makes the slightest shake of her head. "I remember you trying your best." And she stops herself as she realizes it's a personal memory from 5 years ago. "You do think about us, then?" She's silent and takes a mouthful of her drink. "It was good, wasn't it?" he says. "Sure." Her words are barely audible. "Why did you leave?" "I'm not here to—" "You were right, what you said just now. I do want some sort of explanation." "It was good, okay? But everything ends, Nick. Things aren't meant to go on forever." The clock next to the bed says 2 a.m. There's only a pale moon over Budapest tonight, and when the breeze blows the curtain away from the window momentarily, it lets in a fleeting snatch of the moonlight. Gabby wakes and opens her eyes. She can only hear Nick breathing next to her and pulls the covers up over her body. Her mind rolls across what happened tonight. She doesn't regret it, but it won't happen again. She gets out of bed and pads across to the bathroom. As she comes back out, she collects her clothes from where they landed and pulls them on. She pushes on her boots and ties the laces, then walks to the door. She slips the catch and doesn't look back, before descending the stairs to the ground floor and walking out through the main door. She considers getting a taxi, then rejects the idea, and starts to walk back to her hotel through the moonlit streets of Budapest.